Hey, what's up, guys? Alright, so in this week's chapter, we actually get to meet the head or supposed leader of Diabolos, this new Dark Guild that we've been kind of dealing with. And that's this guy named Scarion Raider. I think that's how I pronounce his first name, Scarion. Anyway, we end up finding out at the end of the chapter that this guy actually, his magic is Corpse Dragon Slayer magic. Which kind of goes with his whole, motif, his whole, design. Because as we see at the very end, he's, clad out in all bone armor. Which would make sense for his kind of character, for his kind of abilities, because when you think Corpse Slayer magic, you would think, maybe his abilities have something to do with decay or some kind of necromancy. And when you think of those type of abilities, you expect the character with that design to have bone somewhere in the design. So it makes a lot of sense. Anyway, at the beginning of the chapter, we actually find out that he actually does deal. I guess his magic's more with decay, because at the beginning of the chapter, he actually uses ash magic to basically turn Kyria and Mad Mole into ash and teleport them away. And what's actually kind of funny? When I saw that scene, the first thing that popped in my head was Mr. Stark. I don't feel so good. And that's basically what everyone in the comment section after I got done reading the chapter on my stream was talking about. At least the first 10 comments at the time I read it this morning. Anyway, after the two of them get teleported away, it's basically just Natsu's team and Merfolvia left. And basically, Merfolvia is ready to fight. He's like, oh, you guys are assassins too? You guys are after my head as well? And surprisingly enough, it's basically Natsu who diffuses the whole situation, which you would not expect. I would expect Natsu to be the one to jump right head into a fight, and then Lucy, Gray, Urza, someone else has to stop him and basically calm the situation down. But instead, Natsu's the one that says, "Hey, no, we're technically here to steal you. We were hired by Elsferia to steal you. But if you're not a bad guy, then we have no reason to fight you." And you know what? I know I complained about Natsu in my last review of the chapter about how upset he was about the fact that he wouldn't be able to fight the Water Dragon God. But seeing him actually calmly, or in his best way that he can, explain the situation to Merfolvia and explain how they're not exactly here to kill him, that just kind of shows how much development the character and how much development Natsu has had throughout the entire series. Because in the beginning of the series, in the beginning of original Fairy Tail, I fully believe Natsu would just win right after Merfolvia. He'd be like, "Yup," and just jump right at him with an attack, and it would have been up to someone else to basically defuse the situation. But surprisingly enough, he did it himself. So yeah, they all get to talking, and they're actually kind of, they're kind of being friendly with each other. Like, all right, well, I guess if you're as good of a guy as you seem, then there's no reason for us to actually seal you. And then Merkovia kind of says under his breath, but enough just so that they can hear him and kind of question what he means. He basically says, "No, you guys probably should still seal me." And then after that, he basically invites them to his palace, which I dubbed Atlantis in this chapter because it basically looks like Atlantis. But anyway, he brings them to his palace, and we end up meeting his assistant that we saw in the very first chapter when basically they arrived at the town. And we end up finding out her name is, I believe, Caramel, something like that. Like, it's kind of like Caramel, but I'm not exactly sure if that's how you pronounce it. And we find out for him that she's actually a human who he rescued a few years back from being shipwrecked when she was a little girl. And based off her character design, I say she's at most in her early 30s. I would say probably more likely in her very early 20s. But anyway, it wasn't that long ago that he actually raised her or saved her and started raising her. Now, obviously, she's a little, wary of Natsu in this group simply because of the fact that she's dealt with her the entire time she's been with Merfolvia. That basically Elsferia has been sending assassins after, her kind of fodder figure this entire time. So she's a little worried about him. But he's like, don't worry about it. It's all cool. He kind of sent her away. She's like, listen, just don't get killed by these people, alright? And she kind of just walks off, and that's the last time we see her for the chapter. I'm actually kind of interested in her character, basically seeing what's going to happen to her after we deal with the Water Dragon God. Because honestly, I don't think, as much as I like this guy, I don't think we're getting out of here without either A, stealing him away, or B, him dying by this new guild, Diabolos, or something like that. I just have the feeling that he's not going to have a happy ending by the end of this arc. If I'm being honest, I'd like her to end up joining Fairy Tail and just going off with Natsu and them back to Magnolia and joining up with Fairy Tail. But honestly, since we find out in the chapter that the town that they are in, that's underwater, usually used to be originally just a regular town, I wouldn't be surprised if after what happens with Merfolvia ends up happening, that she just decides to stay there and live there and be kind of like a resident there simply because she's lived there for however long that he's been with her. That's where she was raised, so she would probably not want to leave her home, basically her hometown. And what? Speaking about the town, we actually find out from Merfolvia that the town that they're in used to be a normal city, and all the people in there used to be normal people. But because he decided to live so close to it, his magic runoff basically causes tidal waves that, basically send the city underwater. And because of that, he had to turn people using magic into fish people, which we actually see kind of like a example of that magic, because early on in the chapter, Wendy's still the only one in her fish forms. For some reason, she can't be. She's the only one who can't transform out of it, and he just snaps his fingers and he basically transforms her back into a human. So we see that he actually does have the kind of ability to transform people into like fish and human creatures. But yeah, he says that his magic runoff, the fact that he's losing control of his abilities, is the reason why the city's being basically destroyed or being forced to be underwater during this tide. And it's because of this that is the reason why he said that he has to be sealed away, because he's losing control of his powers, and eventually his powers will run off and basically envelop. He doesn't exactly say this, but it supposedly would end up enveloping the entire continent, causing it to basically go underwater, and he doesn't want that. And you know what? The more he talks in this chapter, the more I'm starting to think, maybe my theory about Elsferia is right. Maybe, Elsferia might be the secret bad guy of the series, because this water dragon god, Merkfovia, is not the way Elsferia originally described him. Basically, he's a kind soul. He's a very nice person. The more we talk about him, the more I'm really liking this guy. But we also find out early on in the chapter with him talking to Natsu and the gang, and that's basically, he used to be the way that Merkfovia, or that Elsferia described him. Basically, 100 years ago, he actually basically says that, yeah, about 100 years or so ago, I was on a rampage. I killed people. I killed humans left and right without any concern. And I actually was responsible for the death of Elsferia's, family and friends. So that's the reason why he's been sending people after me for about 100 years now. So I fully accept the fact that, I used to do that, and I've changed simply because of the fact that Carmelia, however you say her name, he's changed simply because of the fact that he's taken her in. So yeah, saving her life basically turned him from like the evil dragon that he used to be into this like kind soul that we were meeting in this chapter. And because of this transformation, because of him saving her life and actually developing into this character, it's ultimately going to make him meet his end, because he's actually now, because he has such a kind heart and he's actually wishing not to cause harm or hurt other people. He has no choice but to basically die off, because he's losing control of his powers. He's not able to control his magic abilities anymore. So unless he can either learn a way to control his abilities again, he has no choice but to be sealed away or die. And that's really heartbreaking when you read the chapter. Which again is the reason why I say that this arc for, when we're dealing with the Water Dragon God, is either going to end with him actually being sealed away, or basically Diabolos coming in and actually succeeding in their plan to kill him. Now, speaking of Diabolos, we actually do see them at the very end of the chapter. Like I said, we actually get to meet Scaria, or however the fuck you say the guy's name, Scarion, something like that. And we see him at the very end of the chapter, and he basically, the reason why he pulled Kyria and Madmo away is because he says, you can't eat that dragon. And he basically comments, you're a false water dragon god. Now, a few people in the comment section are kind of thinking that maybe, we're going to find out that this guy that we actually got to know and actually kind of like in the chapter, this Merkfovia we got to know, isn't really the water dragon god, and he's actually just an imposter. What I'm starting to think, though, after reading the chapter and actually looking at the context clues from previous chapters, I'm thinking because of the fact that, Merkfovia is actually a dragon slayer instead of a true dragon. The reason why Scarion said that they can't eat him and that he's a false dragon god is because he's not actually a true-born dragon. He's just a dragon slayer who, after years of, being a dragon slayer, gained the ability to turn to a dragon, kind of like Acnologia. And that's the reason why they can't eat him, because eating a dragon slayer won't gain him the dragon abilities. Now, I could be completely wrong with that. I don't know. We don't exactly know how the Dragon Eaters get their abilities, if they can only get them from pure-blooded dragons, or if they could eat a Dragon Slayer and gain their abilities. But guys, that's pretty much it for the chapter review. Now, I want to mention that I actually did really enjoy this chapter. But since I've read on manga stream, like I always do, after I get done reading the chapter on there, I like to check out the comment section to see what people thought about the chapter. And for the most part, when I saw that people actually were really enjoying the chapter like I was. Up until the last page, we actually got to finally meet Scarion, because people, they did not like his character design at all. They think, he's looking like too much of an edgelord with all that, like, skeleton armor. And B, people don't like the fact that he's kind of implying that the Merkfovia we met in this chapter might actually be an imposter. Now, I don't agree with that kind of theory that the people are having. I think more likely the reason why, they say that he's a false dragon god and the fact that they can't eat him is because of the fact that he's actually a dragon slayer. But we won't know until, the series continues, and we actually find out the truth behind it and what exactly they can do. Like, can they eat dragon slayers and gain their abilities, or can they only eat dragons, like pure-blooded dragons? We'll wait to find out. But yeah, that's it for the review. That's it for the chapter. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, drop me a like, subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. Comment down below your thoughts on the chapter, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.